All right, continuing on here now. We're going to go on down to example number 2. All right. And so these two examples, we call them quadratics because they have a power of 2. Okay, so anything that has a power of 2, we're going to call it a quadratic. So we have these two quadratics, and we're going to solve them. All right, but notice that they do look a little different than the previous ones. Okay, the previous two examples that I showed you look like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. And the way that you need to solve those is you need to use the factoring method. Okay, like you have to factor it. Okay, but now notice the way that these are written. They're written as something x squared equals c, or something x squared plus or minus c. So it's kind of written like in this kind of form where you only have one of your term has an x squared, and then you have a c value. Okay, and when the quadratics are written like this, we're not going to use the factoring method. We're going to use the square roots property. So we're going to use the square roots. And this is why it's called the square root property right there, okay? And let me show you how this works here. All right. So when it's written like this, when it only has one x squared term, or in this case m squared, you want to first put the c value on the right. So this problem was given to us like that. And then if I want to solve for m, I want to get rid of the 2. So what is the opposite of squaring? Well, isn't it square roots? So I take the square root of both sides, and so that means m equals 8. Now, since we were the ones who introduced the square root, if we ever write a square root, then we have to do plus or minus 8. And this little plus or minus means that there are actually two answers. There's positive 8, and then there's negative 8. But when you write it like this is kind of like the condensed version. This right here is kind of like, oh, here's our two answers, 8 and negative 8. But it's really plus or minus 8. Okay? Coming over here to example B, I do the same thing. Put the c term on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and add 54 to both sides. Okay, so I get 3x squared equals 54. And now what I want to do is I'm trying to solve for x, right? So, but I don't want to take the square root yet. I actually want to get rid of this 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I get x squared equals 18. Now I want to get rid of the square term, so I'm going to take the square root. So haya, and then haya. So x equals, now we learned how to break down radicals now, so that's square root of 9 times square root of 2. All right. Plus or minus though, right? Because we took the square root. So x equals plus or minus 3 radical 2, because that's a radical 9 right there.